Let me set the scene for you. It's Friday night. The night that you all agreed to finally do this thing and start your first D&D session. And as you've gone throughout the week, you tried to put things together to make sure that you're prepared, you've got your books, you've got your dice, you've got your DM screen, everything's set up. And as your friends walk in the door, there's a minute of pause and fear of wondering, what do I actually do to run this thing? Well, lucky for you, if you've ever had that thought before, you're not alone and you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Dan the Dungeon Man, and this is episode 2 of my series, So You Want to Be a Dungeon Master, where we dive into all the intricacies on how to actually become a Dungeon Master, run the sessions, and get better over time. Today we're going to be talking about what to do in your first session, and to be able to learn all the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way for myself, as well as I've learned from others. So let's dive in. So let me start with my first point, and that is that you, as a DM, are the scene setter. When you jump into a game for the first time, as well as I did, you may set a lot of the history, the historical significance, the different pantheons or gods of the world. You may set the scene for the religions or the factions. But ultimately, when you finally get the players together, whether it's at a church, whether it's at a tavern, it's their game to play, and you are building the world for them in their mind. I would recommend that as you're starting this off, that you use the 5 senses method. Now, what do I mean by that? Simply put, the 5 senses method is describing things they see, they hear, they touch, they taste. Literally any of the 5 senses, you can help bring the world to life by just describing that to them. For example, they walk into a tavern for the first time. Instead of saying, you walk into a tavern, you can say something around the lines of, as you hear the squeaky boards underneath the wood, as you walk in, you see the faint glow of candles around each table, the hushed tones and just people chatting and gossiping around you in different tables. You smell the bourbon and beer that have probably been spilt on the ground by this point. And as you approach the bar, you see a beautiful orcish woman who has seen better days but has been here her entire life. If you are able to just give that bit of description and just roll it off the cuff of your head, you'll be able to really help flesh out what's going on and what the players are experiencing as they walk into this world. Some people really do not care, but the players that really are there for the immersion experience, they will really be able to link their imagination to what you are trying to communicate. Now, this is extremely important. I want to make sure I emphasize this. When it comes to the players jumping in to the world, there's going to be times where you're going to have to remind them, especially if they're new players, about perception checks or insights and different stuff like that. What checks are your way of being able to help the players to see something that they may not see. For example, in one of my games, my second game, there was actually one of the bad guys that were out on a different roof, but nobody knew about it. Nobody rolled for perception or had any idea to. And so that hidden mechanic that would have warned them about what was coming that night just kind of fell into the wayside. For you, as you're getting started, how you can call for a perception check is literally just say, does anyone want to roll a perception check for me? It's not fun to do that all the time, but if you remind your players enough, hey, it's really important that you call out checks for yourself, or to ask for, hey, what do I see? Or can I roll X, Y, and Z because I want to look for X, Y, and Z? If you're able to guide your players in that direction, it makes it easier for you to be able to say yes or no rather than calling for it each time. The second point is that even though that you are the scene setter, the players are the players. What you always need to make sure you're asking is, what do you do? And literally, The best part about D&D is you don't know anything about what these players are going to decide to do. They could decide to punch the nearest person that was near them. They could decide to flirt with the bartender. They could decide they don't even want to be in the tavern, and then they go outside and they go explore around. It is literally up to your players on what they want to do. And as the dungeon master, you may not have every single one of those eventualities lined up. That's okay. The best part about this game is that it really tests your ability to improv and come up with things on the spot. For example, if they decide to leave the tavern and go somewhere else, hopefully you have a little bit of the town fleshed out. And if not, hey, guess what? There's another tavern nearby, or there's a fishing shop, or there's an armory that you can go check out. What would you like to do? And from there, you can create something funny. You can make it as serious as possible. It allows them to do whatever they want within the confines of what game you're trying to run. It is also okay to tell them, hey guys, I'm new. If we could just start in the tavern, that would be preferable so that we can interact with what's going on there. There's always going to be players that are going to try to push you a little bit more than you're comfortable with. But the best part about this game is that it will help you get uncomfortable so that the uncomfortable things eventually get comfortable over time. The third thing you're definitely going to want to do is make sure that you give them clues as they go along, but don't pre-plan their outcomes. For example, if they have the desire to sneak in and steal something, or you've set something up in the arc where they have to go and steal something from a castle, don't say, and you all sneak in. You've lost out on hours of fun just trying to get them from point A to point B. What you can tell them is, hey, this is a castle. There's a lot of guards around the castle. What do you do? They can ask you questions like, well, how many guards? Roll me a perception check at that point. And then depending on their dice roll that you set arbitrarily at what we call difficulty class, or DC, then if they meet it, then they learn a lot. If they overexceed it, they can learn a ton more. I'm a huge fan of fluctuating difficulty classes, where if they overexceed, let's say they had a natural 20 and the DC was 10, you can tell every single guard within the grounds, and there's about X amount of them, and you can tell that they're here, 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 here. If they fail by maybe 1, you give them a little bit of success, but with a complication. That you say, well, from what you see, there's 5 guards here, but really there's a 6th one on the other side. It's all about fun for you as well as for them. And sometimes the best thing for you is to have fun with the narrative a little bit. Let them, with their choices, move things forward, but you guide them well along the path. It's not railroading necessarily, but it is more allowing for a natural flow of story to happen. When it comes to combat, let's say these players were trying to sneak into this castle and somebody tripped on a route. All of a sudden, now all 6 guards are ready to attack, and the party's never done this before. First off, you definitely want to say the words, roll for initiative, because that will allow them to roll, and whatever their D20 is and their modifiers will allow them to know the order. I am going to tell you my specific tool that I use for this, and it's an initiative tracker found right online. I'm actually going to give a little screen of this right now, and it has been extremely useful for me to track things, especially if you're using the standard rules of the monster manual, to give some basic stat blocks that you can link right in and will save you a ton of time. Also, for combat, let's be super clear. You don't need to know every rule, as we've established in the first video. As you're getting started, your players have the responsibility to learn their characters and learn what rules they have for their spells or abilities and different stuff like that. You can always try to help nudge them along, but ultimately they have to read it. If they don't, then they're coming to the game unprepared. For you as a dungeon master, you just need to know what your specific enemies and characteristics that they have to be able to face said people that you're attacking. I would definitely say it's very important to read all the stat block, whether you created it or it's in the monster manual. For example, you could forget to use something like pack tactics, which allows you, if there's two allies next to each other fighting an enemy, that they both get advantage on their rolls. I can't tell you how many times I forgot about that and would have been super helpful as I was starting my campaign, because of the fact that I missed out on so many opportunities to really make it dangerous. And a lot of things at the beginning of my campaign felt like a breeze because I just wasn't using the full stat blocks. Make sure you read your stat blocks, you know the rules, and if you need to consult the rules on it, you can always, once again, go on to dndbeyond.com to be able to look up any of the rules that you need to. So let's hit the last point, and that is that if you don't know something, that is okay. Nobody's expecting perfection here. When your players ask you how far an attack can really reach, you can simply say, you know what, I don't know. Let me take a look real quick. It doesn't take long to be able to look it up on D&D Beyond or in your player's guide or the DM guide to be able to find out how far this thing goes or if this thing hits or different stuff like that. You can easily look up any rule and get that information as fast as you possibly can, which is at your own pace. Nobody wants you to have to worry about every single little detail. And so as you're getting started, don't worry about it. Just make sure that you are allowing yourself grace as you're getting started to run this game. Another thing that's extremely important and will allow for you to have a lot of fun is that if a player wants to do something and it's outside the normal scope, for example, let's say they want to jump from the top of the castle down to the bottom and try to tuck and roll. Use these words, and I use these right from Matt Mercer. You can certainly try. At that point, set a DC pretty high in your head, whether that's 20, 25, whatever you want, and you have them roll. If they somehow hit a natural 20 or are able to hit the DC, great, they succeed with no damage. And if they fail, there's typically a pretty bad consequence. You can find the rules on how that damage will work, or you can make it up on the spot. You are the DM, you get to make the decisions. As long as you are staying within the lines of what the rules are saying, you have total freedom. So here's the last thought to wrap this up. Your first game will not be perfect. Mine certainly wasn't. Your players are not going to remember all the rules you memorized, all the combat and quick encounters, or any of the extra details. What they're going to remember is the moments that you helped create. They're going to remember the laughter that they had, and they're definitely going to remember when they rolled that nat 20. Just focus in on creating those moments. Everything else comes with experience. On the next episode of this series, So You Want to Be a DM, I'm going to be focusing in a little bit more tightly about what happens when my players do something that I didn't prepare for. Because we talked about it a little bit in this video, but I think it definitely needs a little bit more of a deeper touch, especially as we all have had those experiences when our players decide to go completely off the rails. So if you liked what you learned today, please don't be afraid to like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any other questions, please don't be afraid to reach out. I'm Dan the Dungeon Man, and this is episode 2 of So You Want to Be a DM. Thanks for watching.